right. Welcome everyone to this Income Lab webinar. Give everybody a chance to get in the room, so to speak. Um, it is kind of amazing. Just every now and then, it's good to remind ourselves we're living in the future. We got
Yeah.
Matt Glass with us again, and he's down in Mexico. I'm in Colorado. People all over the world.
Yeah.
So let us know as you're coming in the chat how you survived the polar vortex or whatever they called it this time around. It's now in the 50s in Colorado, but it was cold, single digits here. Nothing too crazy over the weekend. 2 feet. That's a lot more than we got. Maybe 6 inches here. Send shovels. Oh, was Boston bad? I do have to say, um, the end of the Broncos game was not pretty. It was,
Yeah, that's about as much experience I had with the snow as watching that game, and it looked wild.
yeah, that was about the ugliest football I think I've ever seen. But turns out you can't play in a blizzard.
Yeah, it's like
Kind of wish it had been stayed clean so that we actually see who could win, with like real
straight
football.
up.
But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know like Buffalo and Denver and even New England, they use that as a, home field advantage, but it's
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean they
but
should be able to
but but at the
play.
end of the day, I think all of us just want to see some like, all right,
They're
without
slipping. They're
without any of
dropping
the
the ball. They're
parts, like who's gonna win? If you just line it up and it's mano a mano and it's all fair. Like, who's the best team?
15 inches in northern New Jersey. Dang. Okay.
Wow.
All right, we got a Patriots hater. All right, we'll get off of NFL. I don't think we're gonna make any friends that way. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. Today's webinar is all about AI, and I think sometimes, especially these days, we're probably a little bit all sick of AI, like every marketing piece about AI, and so we're going to try to boil this down to stuff that's really affecting people's lives. That's one reason we got Matt with us, to talk a little bit about how he's using AI in his practice. Um, so Matt, thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I'll let's see here. Here's a little bit of the themes that we'll hit on today. It'll be a little bit of a conversation, so we'll probably jump around a little bit. But I wanted to kind of now this is an opportunity since we're focusing on AI to kind of give everybody a feel for what Income Lab's approach to AI is. We'll do some introduction to this new tool that we just launched, but I don't want this to just be kind of a feature webinar. I want to talk a little bit more about how to incorporate these tools into your practice in a way that really affects your life, the life of your team, the life of your clients. Like this stuff should be making your life better. Um, and yeah, we'll wrap up a little bit talking about just kind of the overall using AI in financial planning, how to do it well. At least with today's tools, the other amazing thing is like how quickly this stuff is changing, and Income Lab's certainly part of that. We're doing a lot of new stuff coming your way soon. So, all right, so Income Lab's AI strategy. This is kind of how we think about it. Um, our main goal for anything new AI wise that we're doing at Income Lab is we want to make planning amazing. And actually, this is one of those places where the primary focus of what that amazingness is you, the advisor, and your team. All right, this is the kind of thing where we finally have just this opportunity to totally change what the experience of planning is like. Um, the fact is, over the last 20 or 30 years, like planning can be a little laborious. It can take some time. It can be, you got to learn new software. You got to learn where stuff is, where, like, oh, click here, type that in there. We want to, as much as possible, make the actual planning experience amazing. And I think we've actually made some huge progress on that already. Um, Second thing is security and privacy first. So this is a thing that often comes up whenever I talk about AI. Hey, I'm not sure about this stuff. What am I really doing here? When we build AI, and this is true across the industry with any kind of serious firm. I know, Matt, you're going to talk about your use of Jump AI. Um, But those who are serving financial advisors know that privacy and security are super important. So you're going to find, certainly at Income Lab, but I'm going to assume at any reputable firm, you're going to find closed systems, not training on your data, and you're going to find them made specifically for your use case, for financial planning or for advisor, right? For it's going to know your world, as opposed to kind of a generalized LLM that you'll find in the commercial space. What we're really focusing on is trying to make tools that work seamlessly and naturally with you and not against you. And the amazing thing that we've been able to do is, instead of like an advisor having to learn how to use software, and every software's got its little quirks and things, what AI has done for us is allow us to work with however you do things. Because AI doesn't need things to be kind of formatted in a certain way or structured in a certain way. We can kind of get the data however you want to give it to us, and we'll do with it what you need us to do. Um, we're also not interested in just kind of throwing out a bunch of AI slop. It's easy to slap an AI sticker on something and, try to ride the wave on this, but we want things that produce actual value, time savings, and improving lives. And we want to price this stuff for value. At the moment, all of our AI is in a tech preview. So actually, you're getting it for free at the moment. That's a pretty good price. Um, we just give you a feel for how the usage of the Income Lab AI tools is going. That more than 50% of our plans are now being built with AI. I actually suspect it's already 60 or 70%. This stat is from a month ago. Um, and the time to build a plan with AI has come down from a couple minutes to about 30 seconds. Um, and we'll go over exactly what we mean by that. But before I get to the scribe itself, I'd love to kind of bring Matt in, and ask you kind of how, just in general, how have you incorporated AI into your practice, and where have you seen the most important results?
Yeah, Justin, I mean it's intertwined with most of the things within my practice. I mean, obviously the immediate tool or kind of the entry point was the AI note taker, right? That was a real big game changer whenever it started. And just the ability to kind of convert over and to send, to convert the transcription over into a summary email, which moved the needle a lot, right? So in about 30 to 45 minutes after we conclude a first meeting, we're taking the transcription, and Jump has this automatically built in, but I've trained GPTs and I've trained Claude, so other AI tools that I already use, that it understands how I talk and it understands how I speak and how I write. And so I spent a long time training it as far as my style of language, just in the way I communicate. So I'll take that transcription and I'll kind of put that into, GPT that I've already trained, and it's going to spit out very personalized things, right? Hey, I really appreciate you telling me about your daughter's X, Y, and Z. Hey, I'm so sorry about your dog. That really kind of touched me. Just little bitty touch points that, in my opinion, are the most important thing that separates you from another advisor is going to be the personality and kind of some of those personal things that you can pull out to say, hey, you know what? I'll listen to that. I remember that. And I think that's important. Right. And so, that's kind of where it began. Now we actually, I work with another, group, another partner up in Iowa, Whitney and Associates, but we've kind of created a proprietary sales system that trying to get advisors from this production level to the next, and to no matter where they're at. And so we feel like we've kind of dialed that in. And so the challenge is okay, we've got a proven concept. Someone's coming in doing 2 million, 3 million, they can do 10, some 5, whatever the case is. We've seen kind of results, but the challenge was, and how to, I don't want to, take 100% of my time, because I'm the mentor in the program. and it was exhausting. And so what we end up doing a while ago is we end up training and kind of building out a coaching platform that can take transcriptions, and then you can just plug it in and it knows exactly what you are and aren't supposed to say kind of within the context of or the framework of our sales process, and it gives immediate coaching and feedback. And so the idea is, hey, if you've got 10 meetings and we can kind of figure out where you're getting a little bit off track or where you might be losing the client or losing some trust, let's just figure that out on the first meeting. That way the other nine don't have the same thing. That way, because historically advisors will get to the end of that 10 meetings. I had 10 meetings, I didn't get nothing. And there's all this frustration, right? And so most of the time we found it's very, very small things as long as your sales process is structured correctly. So we've been able to build an entire platform that can take, how I coach and how I mentor and convert that over into AI, and it's pretty daggum close. And so both in the way that we respond to client emails, the way that we respond, I mean, just kind of fact checking ourselves, in our ability to take a very complex email, that maybe we could absolutely respond to, might take us a lot of time to kind of look into a lot of things, but just using AI to say, hey, give me just kind of initial draft on this. So I just have a starting point. It can get you 90% there. You figure out a couple of things. So as far as the productivity, it's just absolutely skyrocketed, and we're just working, closer and closer. There's a lot of newer, agent type, AIs. Claude just came out with the co-work, and then ChatGPT's got the agent. And so that's a whole nother ball game that's kind of in the beta version, I assume, but productivity is going to be immense. And so I just encourage everyone to, AI can be scary, and but in reality, it's just a tool, right? And you just don't want to be competing with someone who's using better tools than you are. Maybe that's going to work out in the short term, but long term, probably not. So we're just trying to stay ahead of that curve, and to try to implement as much as we can so we can get the efficiency and the process dialed in. That way, as we scale, then it's just, we're just scaling because our process is already kind of created, and we can kind of, scale as fast as we need to or want to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously, Matt, you're, pretty tech forward on this. I've talked to some other advisors who are also playing around with some of the more agentic things. We're going to hit some of that at the end. Your point on the coaching was pretty interesting because we are going to talk about meetings, and kind of that interleaves with this new AI Scribe that we're talking about. So let me do just a quick demo of that, or a little talking about it, and then we'll talk about kind of that how to structure meetings and things. And in this case, it's about the planning side of it.
Hmm.
Um, so let me get back to okay. So Income Lab has, at this point, 3 or 4 different ways to build a plan with AI. And I know, Matt, your team's been using, here, I'll actually switch over to show everybody what this looks like. Um, okay, so I'm in Income Lab here. And if I hit add a household, I've got my classic, type into boxes options. I got quick create. That's kind of a, real quick, like everything all on one screen. I got standard where I can build all the details I want right away. And then I've got AI plan builder, AI interviewer, and AI scribe. The plan builder is, I think, what you've been primarily using, or your team has, Matt, which is it lets you drop in a file of any type, or actually many files, and type in here. And I believe what you said is you'll use your client intake form or a questionnaire, um, and maybe, yeah, if you want to give us kind of a
Yeah.
feel for how that's going.
So our process is my assistant and essentially will get the fact finder in a digital format after we get done with our first meeting. And so we've got the transcript. So we've got the entire, conversation, and all the things that we've kind of unpacked and kind of pulled out from that client so we don't miss anything. So what we're doing is we're just dragging and dropping the fact finder right into this AI plan builder, and then it's essentially getting us 90 to 95% there already. So it's cut down a lot on the data entry to where we can just kind of, try to perfect it after that.
Yeah, and that basically means, I mean, your team may have been with you for a long time, but the kind of used to have to train people on how software works, right? And that could take weeks, months. I mean, it could take a long time, right? Essentially now you don't need to do any training on data entry and things because we'll go over how to review it, but you're essentially going to review some of the where everything is put in for you, and it'll point out where there might be a spot that we didn't find the information. So I've heard the same thing. Actually, one advisor said, suddenly noticed that the team was able to like turn these things around like within minutes. And he was like,
Yeah.
"What are you guys doing?" And they said, "Oh, you haven't seen this land builder thing?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I
uh,
mean, it's just, like I said, it's a tool.
yeah, yeah, it's
So,
pretty
if
sweet.
you can go, yeah, I've always thought if you can do things faster and more efficient on the mundane task, it leaves you more space and opportunity to kind of create memorable moments for your clients.
Right.
And those are the things that are going to keep the client with you for life, right? It's not going to be the performance. It's not going to be how smart you are. It's not going to be, the way you allocate funds or how well you explain annuities or whatever the case is.
Yep.
It's going to be kind of a personal touch. I have a personal relationship with them. He calls me or she calls me and kind of checks in when there's an important event, all stuff that we can do, I can do 10 times better, right?
Yep.
That's where the magic is. And so essentially the way I look at AI, especially something like this, is that we can mitigate the time that we put into these things that are absolutely necessary. And then what are we doing with that time? Right. And then that gives us opportunities.
Yep. Yep. And that's actually, I find one of the best comparisons for financial advisors in another, area of the world is physicians. I really think, it's a lot about communication and trust and also
Yeah.
there's a level of expertise there that you need, but you're not just, talking with your patient or your client about every little, complex thing, right? They trust you to kind of, hey,
Mhm.
just give me what I need. So this this scribe feature, which is just another tool, as you say, right? You use it, don't use it. In fact, even the name came from I have several physician friends, and one of them's an ER doc, and he actually hires somebody, he pays somebody, usually a medical student, to follow him around and take notes for him, right? And do his charting, which allows him to just interact with the client or with the patient in this case, right? Um,
Yep.
and so that's what this scribe is all about. So and actually that's what they're called. They're called scribes. So it's this thing is gonna sit along with you. So I'm gonna pull up. Let's see a little video. It's a little hard for me to share it because I'm using Zoom and this is a Zoom thing. So I'm gonna pull up the an example I made earlier today. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to forgive the I'm pretending to talk to a client and I'm not doing a very good job. So your jobs are all safe. I'm not
Thank you. I was worried about that.
I'm not coming for it. So
Yeah.
all right. So this is what it would look like, and I'll just play it, and hopefully the audio comes through. I'm in Zoom, and I have opened my apps here, bottom, and I'll start the Income Lab Scribe. It's going to take me over to Income. So if basically this is a Zoom plugin, and you can get to it via Income Lab, it'll take you to the right spot. And if you have not logged in before, it'll make you do this login thing. But it's very simple. You just use your. So I'm going to take you to. All right. So I started a Zoom meeting. The AI Scribe is sitting next to me now, and it's asking me, "Hey, do you want to create a new household with this meeting? So are you talking to somebody new? Very soon, we'll also have the option to update a plan based on a meeting that you have with somebody. Or you can set it to just send you a meeting summary, right? So kind of just use it as a note taker instead of something that builds a plan. So
Back in the apps here, note taker, but we're gonna do this. So I'll do a test household. All right, so we're here with John and Mary Smith. I'll pretend that I'm talking with them. So John, when is your birthday? Okay, it's July of 1963. And Mary, how about you? March of 1965. Okay, great. So in your 60s.
all right, so notice on the side there, it's got a few things. It's got kind of a counter showing you the things that it's found so far. It's going to put in the plan, and then you'll see kind of a feed of the information that it's finding, and it'll actually go back and fix stuff later on. Like I don't know if you just noticed it changed Mary from male to female, right? And now John's age is in there. Um,
Uh, Give me a feel for kind of the resources that we're going to use to fund your retirement. What kinds of things do you have any savings, IRAs, 401ks? Okay, so Mary, you have an IRA of 500,000. Chris has a 401k with 800,000 in it. And you have another account, just a regular kind of taxable joint account with 150,000 in it. It's great. All right.
so you can see now those accounts are showing up there. You'll also notice that I called John Chris, but it didn't get confused.
And Mary, you expect to have a pension of $100,000 a month starting at age 65, so in 2030. Great. And you own your home, and what would you say that's worth? About 600,000.
All right. So now we'll go and have a look at what happened there. So I have not done anything whatsoever other than have that little fake conversation. It's really fun to actually do this and see the items come up in the feed. And again, you can correct things, 100,000. No, it's actually 150, and you'll see it change. So we're seeing it got who we're dealing with. They got their ages. I didn't talk about state of residence, so it doesn't have one. I didn't talk about retirement date. It'll sometimes, if somebody's young enough, it'll just put in a assumed retirement date of 65. But we got their accounts, the balances, we got that pension, and we got the house, right? So obviously that's pretty simple stuff, but the idea is that if you're running virtual meetings, if that's part of your process for data gathering, and it's not part of everybody's process, right? Matt said you got a questionnaire that's working well for you, but if it is, there's now a completely seamless way to just have the agent build the plan for you without, I mean, literally anything. I mean, it's not much to copy and paste, right, Matt? Your jump transcripts or something like that. But any little thing we can do to improve the process is pretty amazing. So what it's going to do is build that plan for you based on what you talked about in the meeting, and it will and then you can review it like I was just showing you, and it'll also send you by email a summary which will include notes on all those plan items, right? So that basically if you ever were wondering, like you could recreate the plan again, just drop that document into the plan builder and you could do it again. And as I said, you got a running count of the found items and you got a live feed of what's happening in there. Right now, it's only available for Zoom. So if anybody's using other platforms, please let us know so that we know what to prioritize. Um, and let me see here. Okay, this is showing you how to get to it. Um, One thing I want to talk about, and I was curious, Matt, what your thoughts are on this too. We've talked to a bunch of people who are use note takers and AI extensively in their practice. Um, and one thing that came up, which I hadn't thought of before, especially if you're doing live meetings, is redundancy. So one thing that's really important to know here is that the Income Lab AI Plan Builder, it's not a replacement for Jump, it's not a replacement for Zocks or anything like that, because it doesn't do a lot of the things that you were talking about there, Matt. It's something you can absolutely turn on right alongside those. So there's no limit in the number of agents you can have on a meeting. Um, and one thing that actually is nice about that, if you're welcome to use Income Lab Scribe on its own, but several advisors have told me sometimes they've had technical hiccups and have started to use multiple note takers so that they can be sure they won't, because they're not taking notes, right? So you're not remember like I'm going to stop trying to remember everything, right? Because I know I'm going to have it written down. Well, if something turned off midway, that can be a problem. So I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where redundancy is not a good idea. But I was surprised to learn that that some advisors are using multiple things at once. Um, all right. So getting back to kind of that AI strategy we talked about from the beginning, the vision here is no more typing into boxes on a screen. Now, like you said, Matt, you're probably 95% of the way there. Like even in my example, right, you're going to have things you forgot to talk about or whatever. Um, Back to that conversation about how to run a good meeting, if you're going to use something like this, or even if you're just using Jump or something and you're copying and pasting your transcript, which is super easy to do, you do need to make sure you're running the right kind of meeting, a meeting where you're getting that information. Or in your case, Matt, you've got to make sure that your questionnaire has the kind of information you're going to need, right? So there is still a little bit of learning about how to do that so that you can really avoid any kind of slippage or waste in that situation, right? Because you saw in mine, now maybe I know where they live, right? So state of residence, not a big deal, but I forgot to talk about retirement date. Dang, right? Just like, so that's things that we're working on as well. And Matt, to your point about like getting it in the first meeting or even reminding you in while you're in the meeting, hey, before you go, remember you didn't ask him about that. That's some stuff that we're working on as well to make sure that there's not that waste where you're having to go back to a client, call them again, right? That kind of thing is places um, where AI can be a huge help. So yeah, I don't know. Before I get to the next like items here, any of that trigger some thoughts on your part, Matt?
No, I mean, I think I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I think that I have seen and I've used multiple note takers in the past, and Altruist is our custodian, so they've got a pretty cool one called Hazel that they're kind of so a lot of people are kind of going after this. I mean, this market is extremely competitive because there's probably not a ton of cost in creating it, right? Now, especially since AI is probably doing most of the work to program it too, right? But at the end of the day, how we run our practice is I have the transcript, right? As long as I get the actual transcript, um, then I'm going to put it into ChatGPT and Claude. We use both, and so we use I almost kind of think of like ChatGPT is like the workhorse, it's like, does most of the task, and then Claude is its manager, right? And so everything kind of gets fed back to Claude, and it measures like, so we've got two different filters. And so as long as we can get the transcript, and it's dramatically helped our business with just being able to take the fact finder, drop that in Income Lab, and then have the transcript readily available for us to go in and just really personalize the whole thing. I mean, we created a custom, takeaway forms, kind of like our own report, that I wanted to show you, Justin. I think it'd be cool for us to kind of, sidebar that. But it's the goal of it is to take all the personal things that they say and weave it into their plan. I mean, some of the things you got, obviously a lot, everybody's using income lab on here, but some of the best, things you can put within your plan is like if they mention like wanting to take their grandkids to Disney, right? And you didn't like it's just like a side, thing they said, and it just kind of came up in conversation. When you put that in their plan and you just leave that at the last and say, oh yeah, by the way, this is us, taking the grandkids to Disney every other year for the next 15 years, right? Is like, whoa, it's just the personal touch, right? And so I think, everything that you're doing, Justin, to kind of, weave this in, is I think that needs to be the ultimate goal, with AI is to, especially within the financial advisor industry, is it gives you the ability to be much more personable,
Yeah.
because in the past, those are the ones that when I heard it, you brought up a physician. A buddy of mine was telling me, I can't remember if he was reading it or if he met somebody that knew this person, but this was the number one, physician in whatever his whatever category he practices in. And he's just kind of this older dude, and he just kicking everybody's ass, just everybody. And, so all these people are like, what are you doing? I mean, it's just how personable he is. He makes the calls prior to personally makes the calls prior to the surgeries or whatever, just to kind of check in and, get some personal information. And he does the same thing afterwards. And it's like, he might not be the best, but he's actually absolutely in his industry, the most personable, which makes him the best. Right. And I think that's what I'm excited about with these tools, that we have is it's the ability to create that personal touch and to pull out something that was just said in passing, but maybe you send a handwritten letter about it. Hey, you know what? I didn't want to let this moment pass. I actually, heard you say that, it means a lot to me, or hey, I'm praying for you about this, or whatever it is like that's what moves the needle a ton. Nobody's going to go anywhere. And you can, as far as new clients go, you figure out ways to not be salesy, right? But just create a personal touch to say, hey, regardless of if you work with us or not, this is, I thought this was really important. And, I just wanted to kind of, do this or say this or something, right? So I think the AI Scribe, the plan builder, everything, it's a means to an end, and that end should be to have a deeper relationship with your clients, right? So there's a lot of things that need to lead up to that. You have to have a really efficient sales process. You've got to have a really efficient note-taking process. You got to have all these things to where you don't want to drop the ball on the easy stuff. And then if you can just get your system down and figure out ways to use this technology and these tools to create personal touches, it's going to dramatically change your business.
That's such a good reminder of like what this is all about. And your examples are always so good. The Disney one's really good. I had a conversation with a relative. I mentioned this in last week's webinar. Like, I'm actually kind of jealous of advisors who get to have this kind of conversation because it's so cool. Like, it's kind of life changing when you start having conversations with people where it's not just, oh, should I own this stock or not? Or like, what's my probability of success? It's like, well, what does a good life look like to you?
Yeah.
What kinds of things? I asked this question and I thought, I got a good response was, hey, there been any time in the last couple of years you had an opportunity and you said no because you were afraid,
Good question. It's a good one.
because of money, right?
Yeah.
And everybody can think of something. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
nervous about that. No, yeah, we could have gone on that trip, or, you know,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
could
you're
have
right.
bought
I
that
think,
camper, like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, that's why we, with my company and kind of the advisors that I mentor is like we start with structure, right? It's structure over everything. We need to be structured in the correct way. And then once we're structured in the correct way, then we can work on the efficiency of kind of that structure, right? And most of the time, well, for us, all the time, because we're not going to work with a client unless this is the case, is if we structure it correctly, then that creates freedom for a
Yeah.
certain, bucket of money. And then you're like encouraging them to spend money. You're encouraging them to go follow their passions and their dreams and the things that they've always been scared of and put off. And you're right. It is immensely valuable to be in that position to say, hey, you know what? I helped you structure everything correctly, and this plan is as close to bulletproof as possible without using the G word or the guarantee, any of that stuff. Like we've worked to kind of mitigate as much as we can, and it's time to live. And then so I'll give you an example. On the AI, this just kind of came to me, but I think this is a good personal touch. So there was a client of ours that was coming up on a review meeting, and in the meeting previously, I just went in and say, hey, did they say, I just, you can go into Jump AI and kind of ask anything, or you can do the transcript, you can ask whatever you're using. And I was like, hey, is anything personal coming up? Like, did they mention any trips, like grandkids or anything? He's like, oh yeah, they said they're going to they're taking an Alaskan cruise. Okay. And so me and my team, we put together this gift box that was all things Alaska, and sent them like a guide. We sent them like super like warm, comfy socks, some binoculars, just just small little things. And it was just like over the top. We did the same thing with a client. This is even cooler. Same thing with a client, one of our top clients was going to Italy. And so I just went and sent him a bottle of Italian wine on some website. I just picked it at random because, again, the note taker kind of picked that up. Hey, they love wine. They've mentioned it multiple times. Like, this is probably a good action item. So I sent them over this bottle of wine. They love it, right? They thought it was awesome. Thank you. Little hand notes like, hey, just want to kind of get you guys ready for Italy. Here's a bottle of wine on us. Can't wait to hear about the trip. Send us some photos, right? And that client sent me photos throughout the entire trip. And he decided he liked the bottle of wine so much that he went to the winery, okay, in Italy that they made it, and when they showed up, they were closed. And so they went all this way and they're like, we're sorry, we don't do tours, like we're closed. And like, you know what? Since it's just you two, come on back. They got a personal tour of the whole place. And it was all because I kind of pulled some information out. And you think that client will ever leave me? No. Right. And so that's just kind of a cool example of kind of what we're talking about, is being able to kind of add that personal touch.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it really is like, it's just more fun to have good relationships with your clients, right? And to like help them do the thing that they value so much. Like that's a good life for them, right? I help them use their resources in a way that led to a good life for them. I mean, it's just so, yeah, it's just so fulfilling. Um, so I don't know, I love it. Um, we got a bunch of questions in here. I know Malkley is actively answering some of them, but and some are just about, hey, on the Scribe, you guys gonna do a Microsoft Teams, Google Meet. So thank you for your votes on those. Certainly, those are things that we're looking at. Don't have a timeline on them, but definitely that's you know something that we definitely want to support you on. I think on this third one, you basically just talked about it. Like you documented something, you got it in your notes. Are you acting on it? Right? I mean, that's the big gap. If you just implement note taking or something, I mean, the AI Scribe at least acts on building the plan, right? Which is awesome. But if you're going to document, if you're going to put like, have a system to do some things with it, right? Um, We have a bunch of questions in here, and actually, I think we will produce some materials for you to help you with this. So we have a lot of questions about basically like what works well when you're building plans with AI, either or when you're running a meeting and using the scribe. Um, so this is really important. Like I've had people say like, well, maybe I'll upload the tax return or something. And I love tax returns, and I think you can find a lot of great information about them. Um, but you actually won't be able to build a plan with it, right? Because it doesn't tell you how much they have. It doesn't tell you if it's in IRAs or 401ks or whatever. It doesn't even tell you, which jobs they have or what income streams, right? So there's a lot of information in there, but it's not really a document you can use to build a financial plan from. You actually need other things. Um, Something that works okay, but not perfectly is maybe you got tables and graphs of, from some other software that you used to use or something. Because we get a lot of this where people are saying, hey, could I use this to kind of transition to Income Lab? And the answer is definitely yes. And our AI does a decent job if it's just tables and graphs of kind of top level, you know, categories of things. But again, it's not quite the same as knowing, okay, John's got this much Social Security, Mary's got this much, right? It might just on the plan, it just might say Social Security and they give it to you year by year, but you don't really know who's got what and what the, you know, maybe the spousal benefit is or the survivor benefit, all that stuff. Um, it's a little more detailed than you might have in some of those. So we will definitely be working on producing kind of ways to guide you to run these meetings, but the main things you want in the most natural way possible. So I did it terribly on that on that recording, but you want to get to like, okay, what kind of accounts are we talking about here? And you don't need exact numbers, right? We can dial that in later, but you kind of want to know, oh yeah, well no, I think I do have an old 401k from there, and maybe it's only got 10 grand in it, and that one's got, you kind of want owner type, amount, and so on. And if it's an income stream, you want to talk about when it's going to start. Oh, I got a pension. Well, is that started yet? No, it starts at 65. Oh, okay. Right. So you're going to want to kind of learn to have a conversation where you imagine you're talking to that scribe sitting over your shoulder with a notepad, right? And they're going to write down everything that's important. So you want to elicit it. I even have talked to people who will start a Zoom meeting and before the client comes on, they'll say a bunch of stuff, right? So that it's in there, right? The scribe's already got it, but you don't need to do it in front of the client, right? So maybe you get the names and birthdays and all that stuff out of the way so you don't, because that's a little awkward. Um, so that's some advice on kind of how to do this. And basically the more you know what kinds of things are important in a plan, um, and the more you can actually elicit that information, the better your plan will be to the point where you can be, 95% of the way there. Just a quick review to get through it. So I've seen some discussion in the Q&A and in the chat about this, and definitely it's a place that Income Lab is going to be working to provide you with some of that in the interim. Like I said, ideally we'd love to be prompting you if you forget something, but we can help you in the meantime. For the AI Plan Builder, which is not the Scribe, just to kind of go through some of the other things that work really well. Actually, financial plan PDFs do work really well. Like I said, if they only have kind of these sum, the totals, they'll still be pretty good. You might have to do a bit more with them, but we've gotten a lot of really good feedback. So if you tried the plan builder a long time ago, try it again. Like it keeps getting better. We keep working on it. But intake questionnaires, as Matt said, those are big, big time. Dictated or transcribed meeting notes. So most like audio note programs now give you a transcript with it anyway. So if for whatever reason you want to get a transcript, it works extremely well. Meeting transcripts, so any note taker will give you access to that, and it usually has just a little button to copy and then just paste it right into our text box. You can paste thousands of words in that text box, it doesn't matter. Um, so these are the kinds of things that work really well. Another one that I've noticed is maybe hey, there's this great report that I know works really well with Income Lab, but it is missing Social Security information. Okay, drop that document in and then type in the text box, and I'll go back to the Income Lab so you can see this. Um, if I go to AI Plan Builder, see I can do documents, but I can also add text. So I can just put in a document and then say, John's Social Security is, PIA is 3,000, right? So you just add it because you know that report doesn't have that information. So you're kind of helping the AI. You're saying, you could even say, hey, they sold that vacation house. You know, I know it's in the plan, but they sold it. Don't include it, right? So you're kind of helping the AI a little bit with some context. Um, the last thing, and then we'll hit the is as Matt said, there's a bunch of kind of preview early stuff. This is definitely for more like tech forward folks, but I've already heard of some cool uses of this. Um, and Matt, you may even know of other ones. So you mentioned Claude Cowork. I'm sure there are others. Even the ChatGPT browser, I know, does some of this where you can have an AI agent actually do stuff actively. You can watch it. So one advisor, um, well, it's actually uh, Derek Tharp, who's on a lot of our webinars, said he was seeing if Claude Cowork could um, build summaries of plans that he had in another system that he could feed into Income Lab. He actually also had it try to like literally just map it over, like go to Income Lab and build a plan. He said it didn't do great actually, but I'm sure it'll get better. But you got an existing, if especially if you're in that process of kind of moving people over. Maybe you want to move everybody who's 55 and older over to Income Lab, or maybe you want to move all of your plans over. If you're willing to kind of put in a little bit of work on this, getting a really good summary of each plan that can be uploaded then to Income Lab's plan builder, and that can just run overnight. I mean, you wake up tomorrow, you got every single one of your clients has an Income Lab plan, right? Um, so I mean,
Yeah,
the
Justin,
possibilities are endless,
I
man.
think, Claude Cowork just in the last couple of weeks have just, it's just been crazy. So I've got a cool story, a little short one. So I had a client that one of our larger clients, we're about to close a really big income annuity on. And but he's an engineer. He's one of the only people that that I allow kind of, access to kind of play around in his plan because you can pick view or view and edit. So me and him get in there. We kind of, he enjoys it, helps me kind of answer questions on Income Lab. So he was running scenarios, and there was just all these gaps, and he just couldn't figure it out, right? And it was gaps on the cash flow. Something was off. So he sent me this extremely long email that I really didn't have any interest reading, with all these screenshots. God bless the guy. I literally copied, pasted the screenshots and the email without even reading it, and said, summarize this for me, right? And then I put it into Claude Cowork, and I said, "Hey, see if you can go in and find what the problem is, like in the settings or kind of whatever." And so it goes into Income Lab, figures out that we're supposed to adjust from how much can I spend to what's the best way for me to, I can't remember the terminology, what's the best way for me to spend X,
Yeah.
then increase the spend 150% or to a certain dollar amount. And it literally changed the settings for me and said, "Hey, tell them that it's all fixed now. Tell them to look at it again." It's like, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. So, and I've done the same, Claude Cowork. We use Wealthbox for our CRM, and it just rebuilt my entire pipelines and workflows and everything. It took it about 3 days, and I had to sit there and, crack the whip on it, and just say,
Yeah.
"Nope, keep working. No, I don't want to do anything. You do it. And I'm overseeing it. But so it is the agent stuff is definitely beta right now, but it is very, very impressive. And so even more of a reason why if you're not on AI, you're just not going to be playing the same game as everybody else who is. So, regardless of what you feel about it, if you want your business to be competitive and you're trying to scale, like this is the world you have to learn.
Yeah. We live in the future. They said there'd be flying cars, but instead we got Claude Cowork. But
Yeah. Well,
um,
Elon wouldn't respond to that question when he said he's gonna, reveal the what was that? What's the Roadster or whatever he said? Joe Rogan was like, "Does it fly?" And he's like, "No, it doesn't fly." He wouldn't answer. I'm like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have a flying car, and who knows?"
all right, a couple more questions in here. This was a really good one, just about security. What happens after I upload PDFs? We actually don't keep them at all. So we burn upon reading or whatever. That's what we do. So it's not um, it's encrypted. You can't access it well. It's being worked on, but then it's gone. So it's not held anywhere. These these things created with the scribe or with the plan builder, they'll what we've created with them, the plans, obviously those stick around, but there's no way to kind of go back and find it. So if there was some kind of, personal information or something in that document, it'll be gone. So that's again part of our kind of approach here is we want to make sure that you can get these benefits and not worry about, stuff like that. All right. Somebody's asking about errors. If you're seeing any kind of error, like I think what you're talking about here is maybe the file type, or there's some kind of corruption in the thing, or we've run into problems where if the PDF is a fillable PDF, sometimes you got to print it or something. We're working on all those kind of just basic issues. So if you got a document that for whatever reason triggers an error in the AI plan builder, please let us know because good chance we can fix that and that'll help you in the future and it'll help everybody else who's trying to use that file type or runs into some kind of issue where it can't read it right. So this software it's still software, right? So there's still things that need to be fixed here and there. So definitely take a look at that. All right, let me see if we got anything else here. Oh, the interviewer versus the scribe. So yeah, we didn't talk much about the interviewer, but I do know there are people who are using it quite a bit and using it to great effect in their practice. So um, the interviewer is a link that you send to a client or prospect, and then an AI chat will ask that person information, much in the same way. It's extremely focused on just the basic stuff, right? Hey, let's start with your investment accounts. Let me know how many you have and, that kind of thing. So it's conversational, but it's extremely focused. So you can't ask it what the weather is in Cleveland. You can't, it'll just say like, man, that's not what we're here for. So depending on how you run your business, this can also be useful. I know for some really kind of high volume prospecting situations, we've got people who use this quite a bit. And again, always looking for feedback on it. So if you've got, success stories or complaints, let us know. We'll get those things going better. So, and I think Malcolm's answer there was also a good one. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, we did also have a question about, well, what if you're doing meetings, um, in your office or somewhere? I know there are tools for kind of recording live meetings and things that'll transcribe them and stuff like that. I'm not as familiar with it. I wish I had written some of those down because I know I've talked to advisors who do that. Matt, do you have any tools that you can
Yeah,
recommend
I
there?
mean, probably the most common one is Plaud, Plaud. That's what
Got
we
it.
originally started with, but they have independent devices. I mean, I'm sure there's others. That's just the one
Yeah.
I'm familiar with. They got independent devices that you can either, use your cell phone or you can just put, like a card or they've even got like a pen, now. So it's getting pretty kind of James Bondy. So yes, there's absolutely. So I would start with Plaud, Plaud, not to be confused with Claude. And that'd probably be a good option if you for whatever reason can't use web services in your meetings.
Right. Yeah. And if you can use web services, you can always just start a Zoom meeting with the AI up. Like in that fake thing that I did, I was the only person on that and it was still picking it up fine. So it'll do fine if you just have it on the desk in front of you or something. It'll pick up voices and so on. So that's another option. But yeah, Plot is the one I had heard about because of the devices and things like that. So all right, see what else we got here. Intake form, an income web intake form. Great question. Yes, we actually are working on that. In fact, it may be done. So let me let me check on the like if you have your own intake form, that's great. Like I said at the beginning, what I love about the AI stuff is we no longer have to like ask you to do it our way. Like you do it your way and we'll work with you. But if you don't have an intake form or you're looking to kind of update yours, yeah, use ours or take a look at maybe we got some good questions on there and integrate it with you. Um, so yeah, we will definitely get back to you on the intake form. Robin was asking about Claude Cowork, GPT Atlas, and so on. Really good question. When we use AI, we always use business versions of AI where you can set your own security and training settings. My impression is if you're just kind of using this stuff, on the open internet, they're going to be training on what you put in there. That would be my assumption. So, obviously check yourself. But if you're looking to integrate some of these other tools that Matt was talking about, or we've gone over here, make sure do your due diligence, get it set up the way that actually works for you, for your compliance needs and stuff like that. Um, I would definitely look at a business instance of those things. Yeah, and actually, so somebody was asking you, Matt, about what Claude Cowork does. So Claude Cowork is a thing where you will actually see it browsing. It'll be doing stuff. You can allow it to, yeah, to edit plans and things. I mean, you can have it book you, travel tickets. Like it'll actually do stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The only thing, it's got some limitations on sensitive information. So it is a layer of kind of security. For example, I just, wanted to see if it would do it. I just went in and to one of our annuity carriers, and I was like, "Hey, if I give you this fact finder, which is not sensitive information, we don't have socials or driver's license or anything like that." It wouldn't do it just because it was like an application. So there is security measures kind of built into it already, which I'm sure is going to get way better. I mean, they just rolled this thing out and it's super beta right now, but it is definitely something you need to be familiar with, because this is it's going to be the next thing, bar none.
Right. All right, I think we hit pretty much all of the questions. If you're interested, also like our team is available to help you with this stuff. It really is going to speed things up for you, make your life better, make your team's life better, um, get these processes in place, and like give you more time for what Matt was talking about, which is like the fun stuff in planning and being an advisor. Connecting with people, making sure you're providing them with the kinds of things that give them a good life. So I think that's a good reminder, Matt, like what this is all about. Like we're excited about, this new table saw or this new drill, but like it's really all about what you can do with it in the end. So um, more to come. And thank you very much, Matt, for being with us. And thanks for everybody for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
See you.